Sometimes in the evenings they'd walk along the beach, barefoot, fingers interlaced. The ocean breeze carried salt and jasmine. "Do you ever regret meeting me?" he asked once, voice soft, almost afraid of the answer. Amara smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Every day I remember what it cost," she said. "But not once have I regretted loving you." He stopped walking, turned her toward him. "Then let's disappear completely," he said. "Start over where no one knows our names." "Where?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Somewhere the sky is wider than our past." Wu Jin still had connections, old allies who owed him favors. Through them he arranged forged passports, new names, new lives. In 3 days they would sail to the Philippines under false papers, never to return. But that night, under the glow of a single lamp, Amara caught him staring at his old pistol lying on the table. "You don't need that anymore," she whispered, touching his arm. "I know," he said quietly. "But sometimes I wake up thinking I'll have to fight again." She took the weapon, unloaded it and placed it in his hands. "Then fight for this," she said, guiding his hand to her heart. "Not with bullets, but with love." For the first time, Wu Jin smiled fully. Not the cold smirk of the mafia king, but the unguarded smile of a man finally free. They made love slowly that night. Not in desperation, but in peace outside. The waves kept their rhythm. Inside, their breaths matched it, two hearts rediscovering safety in each other. Afterward, Amara lay curled against him, tracing the tattoo on his shoulder, a dragon wrapped around a sword. "What does it mean?" she asked. He kissed her forehead. "It used to mean power. Now, maybe it means I survived long enough to meet you." She laughed softly. "You should get a new one." "What should it be?" "A compass," she said. "So you always find your way back to me." At sunrise, they packed what little they owned. A few clothes, photographs, her journals, his leather jacket. Wu Jin carried the passports and tickets tucked inside his coat. On their way to the harbor, they passed a street musician playing a soft melody on a violin. Wu Jin stopped, pulling Amara close as they listened. "Dance with me," he whispered. "In the middle of the road?" She laughed. "Right here, just once more." She gave in, resting her hand on his chest as they swayed to the music. Slow, tender, unhurried. For a moment there was no soul, no mafia, no ghosts. Just two lovers moving like the world had forgiven them. When the song ended, he kissed her temple. "We made it," he said. Hours later, the ship's horn echoed across the bay. As they boarded, Wu Jin glanced back one last time at the fading outline of Korea, the city that had made him a monster and somehow given him love. Amara slipped her hand into his. "Leave it behind," she said. "We have the rest of the world now." He nodded, tightening his grip. "Wherever you go, Amara, that's home." As the ship pulled away, the wind caught her hair and his laughter mingled with hers. Light, unguarded, alive. For the first time, Wu Jin felt no weight on his soul. The mafia king was gone. Only the man remained, the one who had chosen love over power, warmth over war. And as the horizon swallowed the last glimmer of soul, Amara leaned against him and whispered, "We're free." He kissed her gently, eyes closed, tasting salt and sunrise. "Yes," he murmured, "free and forever yours." The sun melted gold over the island sky, its light spilling across white sands and palms swaying gently in the ocean breeze. 3 years had passed since Wu Jin and Amara vanished from Korea. Now, in a small seaside town in the Philippines, they lived a life that felt borrowed from a dream, quiet, hidden, and breathtakingly simple. Wu Jin went by Jay now, a quiet boat repairman known for his calm manner and deep, mysterious eyes. The townspeople whispered about the woman who stole his heart, Amara, the African teacher with a smile that could stop the sea mid-tide. Their home stood near the edge of the water, a small wooden house with white curtains that danced with every breeze. The scent of coffee, paint, and ocean salt always lingered inside. Every morning, Wu Jin would wake before sunrise and watch Amara sleep, her hair spilling across the pillow, her face soft in the golden light. Sometimes, he'd run his fingers over her skin, tracing invisible promises on her shoulders. He'd whisper, "You're still my peace," and she, half asleep, would murmur, "And you're still my storm." Then she'd smile, and he'd fall in love with her all over again. Amara taught English at a nearby school, her students adoring her. She painted on weekends. Their little house was full of her canvases. Seascapes, sunrises, and one painting that always made Wu Jin stare a little longer. A portrait of him looking toward the sea, with a faint smile and eyes full of quiet strength. One afternoon, she came home to find him cooking. Sleeves rolled, hair tousled, soft music playing. She leaned against the doorway. "You, in the kitchen, still feel illegal." He smirked. "Everything I do used to be illegal." Amara laughed, walking over to hug him from behind. "Then this must be your cleanest crime." He turned, capturing her face between his hands. "And the sweetest one." He kissed her, slow, tender, tasting of spices and love, and the quiet hum of a world that finally allowed them to exist. Later that night, they sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, the waves whispering in rhythm with their hearts. "Do you ever think of Seoul?" Amara asked softly. Wu Jin hesitated, then nodded. "Sometimes, but not with regret. I think of who I was, and how meeting you set me free." She smiled faintly. "You changed for love." He turned to her, eyes glinting under the starlight. "No, Amara, I didn't change for love. I changed because love showed me who I could be." Her eyes shone. "And who's that?" He brushed a thumb over her lips. "A man who finally deserves you." Amara leaned in, her voice trembling with warmth. "Then keep deserving me." Wu Jin chuckled softly. "That's the only fight I'll never stop." He pulled her into his lap, and under the blanket, the two of them watched the stars, silent, content, whole. The next morning, the sea was calm. Wu Jin found Amara sketching by the shore, her hair glowing in the early sun. He knelt beside her, picked up a small shell, and slipped it gently onto her finger like a ring. "No gold, no diamonds," he said softly. "Just the sea that saw us start over." She looked at the shell, then at him, her eyes glistening. "You're impossible. And you," he whispered, "are my reason for believing in impossible things." She kissed him, slow, tender, endless, and the waves broke in applause. Years would pass. People would forget the name Jang Woo-jin, the ruthless mafia king of Seoul. But somewhere by the sea, laughter would echo through a small house where love had found its truest form, quiet, steady, unbreakable. Every night, as the ocean sang beneath the stars, Woo-jin would whisper against Amara's neck, "Even if I had to live 1,000 lives, I'd find you in every one." And she'd smile, eyes closed, whispering back, "Then we'll keep finding each other, until the sea runs out of stars." Sure, before I write that next scene. The anniversary chapter will stay gentle and romantic, but I want to check one detail so I can write it your way. Morning came soft and silver. The ocean breathed quietly outside their window, and the smell of rain lingered in the air. Amara stirred awake to find Wu Jin already up, sitting by the window with a cup of tea in his hands. The early light touched his face, painting him in gold. She smiled sleepily. "You always wake before the sun." He turned, his voice rough with warmth. "And you always sleep like you trust the world." Amara stretched, the sheets sliding off her shoulder. "Maybe because I do. At least this little piece of it." Wu Jin walked over, set his cup down, and sat beside her on the bed. "This world," he murmured, brushing her hair aside, "is all I ever wanted to protect." His fingers trailed along her neck, tracing the small birthmark near her collarbone. The one he said looked like a fallen star. She leaned into his touch, her breath catching. "I thought you were dangerous when we met," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I was. And now I'm just a man hopelessly addicted to your smile." Amara laughed softly, then cupped his face and kissed him. A kiss slow and certain, full of years, full of knowing. Outside, the rain began to fall, gentle and steady. They spent the morning inside, the rain a song against the roof. Wu Jin cooked breakfast, clumsy but sincere, while Amara painted by the window, a new canvas spread before her. "What are you painting?" he asked, wiping his hands. She smiled without looking up. "The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and whispered against her ear. "Then the painting will be full of fire." She turned in his arms. "It already is." Their lips met again, slow and tender, the kind of kiss that felt like time itself paused just to watch them. Later that evening, the storm cleared. The air smelled of salt and wildflowers. They walked barefoot along the wet sand, fingers entwined, the horizon still shimmering with the last colors of sunset. Amara stopped, turned to him and said, "Do you ever think we'll get tired of this?" Wu Jin smiled and shook his head. "The sea never gets tired of kissing the shore." She laughed softly. "You and your poetry." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Only when it's about you." They stood there for a long while, the waves curling around their feet, the sky slowly deepening into stars. Amara laid her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You know," she murmured, "sometimes I wonder if this is real, if maybe I'm still dreaming." Wu Jin's hand tightened around hers. "Then don't wake up," he said. "Not yet. Not ever." As night fell, they returned home, lit a few candles, and sat by the window watching the sea glow under the moonlight. Amara whispered, "Do you ever miss the life you left behind?" Wu Jin looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "I used to rule a world built on fear. Now I live in one built on love. Tell me which is richer." She smiled and leaned into him. "Then let's never leave this one." He kissed the top of her head and said softly, "As long as you're here, this world will never end." The waves rolled outside, the stars shimmered, and in that quiet little house by the sea, two hearts beat in rhythm. Proof that even the most broken souls could find forever in each other. The moon hung low, spilling silver light across the waves. The sea was calm, and the air carried the scent of jasmine and salt. Inside their small house, the lights were low. Only candles burned on the table, flickering like tiny hearts. Amara sat by the window, brushing out her hair. Wu Jin watched her from across the room, the glow from the candles tracing gold along her skin. Every time he looked at her, he felt the same quiet awe, the disbelief that someone like him could deserve something this pure. He stood and walked over to her, stopping just behind the chair. "You still don't know how beautiful you are when you're lost in your thoughts," he murmured. She looked up at him through the mirror and smiled. "I think you remind me too often." He bent slightly, his breath warm against her ear. "I don't remind you enough." Amara turned, taking his hand, and guided him to sit beside her. The silence between them was soft, full of things they didn't need to say. Outside, the waves broke gently against the shore, the rhythm of their life. "Remember our first night here?" she asked. Wu Jin nodded. "You said the sea sounded like a promise. And you said you didn't make promises," she teased. He smiled faintly. "I was wrong. I made one that night without realizing it." She tilted her head. "What promise?" He looked into her eyes, the candlelight reflected in them like stars on water. "That I would never stop finding new ways to love you." Her heart fluttered. "And have you?" He reached out, brushing a thumb along her jaw, tracing the faint dimple that appeared whenever she smiled. "Every day," he whispered. "Every time you laugh, every time you touch the sea and think no one's watching, I fall in love again." She leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. "Then keep falling," she whispered, "because I'll always be here to catch you." Wu Jin smiled, pulled her gently into his arms, and held her close. They stayed that way for a long while, not speaking, just listening to the sea and the slow rhythm of their breathing, two heartbeats perfectly matched. When the night grew deeper, they walked outside to the porch. The world was quiet, and the sky was scattered with stars. Wu Jin took her hand, placed it over his chest, and said softly, "Do you feel that?" She nodded. "It's yours," he said. "It always has been." Amara smiled, her voice barely a whisper. "Then you'll never lose your heartbeat, because I'll guard it with mine." They stood together under the vast sky, wrapped in warmth and moonlight, the sea whispering below them, a song written only for the two of them. The first light of dawn spilled over the horizon, soft and golden. The waves murmured below their window, steady as breath. Wu Jin woke first. For a long while he just lay there, watching Amara sleep beside him, her hair a halo against the pillow, her face peaceful, her hand resting over his heart. He smiled faintly. The world had once known him as a name whispered in fear, a shadow that ruled cities. Now, he was simply a man grateful to wake to sunlight and the woman who had given him peace. He slipped quietly from the bed and went outside. The beach was cool beneath his feet. He built a small stack of stones near the water, each one smooth, rounded by years of waves. When Amara appeared a few minutes later, wrapped in a light shawl, he turned to her with that boyish half-smile that still made her heart stir. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Leaving proof," he said, "that we were here, that love can outlast even the tides." Amara knelt beside him, added one more stone on top, and whispered, "Then let's make it the last one, the one that says we stayed." He reached for her hand and kissed it. "Together," he said simply. They watched the sun climb higher, painting the sea in gold. The years stretched before them, not as something to survive, but as something to fill with laughter, paint, music, and quiet mornings like this. Time moved gently after that. Their small seaside home became a place of stories. The children she taught spoke of the kind couple by the shore, the ones who built lanterns that floated out to sea every year. Sometimes, late at night, locals would see two figures sitting on the sand, hand in hand, their lanterns drifting out into the dark. They said the couple never aged, that the sea itself guarded their secret. Perhaps it did. For even when the tides changed and the seasons turned, two things remained: the whisper of the ocean and the unbroken rhythm of a love that had survived everything. And if you stood close enough, when the wind was right, you might still hear a soft voice saying, "Even if the sea runs out of stars, I will still find you." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.